Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to go over the steps needed to connect the Pi camera to your Raspberry Pi 5, as well as the command lines you need to run in your SSH session to check and confirm that the camera is plugged in properly in the Pi, and also the command lines you need to install the needed tools that are needed for you to be able to see the camera footage. Let's start by connecting the camera to the Pi. All right, and this is the Raspberry Pi, and this is the camera that I bought for it. It's the Raspberry Pi Camera Module 2. And as you can see, the Raspberry Pi ships with this cable. This is a 15-pin cable, it works great with the camera, but unfortunately, it does not fit the Raspberry Pi. The Raspberry Pi needs a 22-pin cable, so this one just doesn't fit. So instead, I have to purchase this set, and it came with three different 15 to 22 pin cable conversion, three different sizes, so I can use it in different ways. And the cable that I'm going to be using today is going to be the smallest one, 15 to 22 pin, and that is because it's just going to be sitting on top of the Raspberry Pi for this exercise. I'll use the long ones later, but for today's example, I can just use the little one. So I'm going to go ahead and clean everything out of here and just leave the Raspberry Pi and the camera. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this 15-pin cable that I am not going to be using on this camera. And I just need to unlatch this security pin over here. And once that's undone, pull the cable out. I'm going to bring the new cable in, and the pins, make sure they are facing in direction of the camera lens. So make sure I install this properly. Once it's in the camera, just secure it, close the pin, and it is secure. Now let's bring the Raspberry Pi. And like I said, it goes from a 15 port to a 22 port. So the pins are also, in this case, they're going to be looking upwards. All right, let's go ahead and connect the camera. And once the cable is in the bay, go ahead and secure it by pushing these pins down. That's it. Now the camera is secure in the Raspberry Pi. Okay, now that the camera is in place, I'm going to go ahead and plug the Raspberry Pi back into the network. Okay, the Raspberry Pi has been plugged back into the network. Now let me see if I can ping the Raspberry Pi just to confirm that it's active again. So the IP address of the Raspberry Pi is 192.168.40.76. And yes, I can see it ping, so it's online. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to SSH into the Raspberry Pi. So SSH username at the IP address, I enter the password, and I'm in. All right. And okay, and now that I'm logged into the Pi, I'm going to check and see if there are any updates that I need to install. So I run sudo apt update, and it's going to check and make sure I'm good. And it's telling me that there's one package that can be installed. So I'm going to go ahead and install that. And it's sudo apt upgrade. And it's going to install the package. I'm going to say yes to install. All right. And now the Raspberry Pi is up to date. I'm going to clear the screen. And now I need to check that the camera hardware was installed properly in the Raspberry Pi. So what I need to do is I need to run this command line. Leave camera -hello. And this command line is the one you used to use on the Raspberry Pis before the Raspberry Pi 5. So if I hit enter, it's telling me that the command line is not found. And that is because on Raspberry Pi 5, the command line that you need to use is different. That command line is RPI cam -hello. If you hit enter, and it's telling you, it's checking and making sure everything is fine and is looking good. So I did not get any error message, which means that the hardware was properly installed. The Raspberry Pi is recognizing as an approved camera, and we are good to go. And here's another thing. So the camera is starting to take some footage. However, I can't see anything because I am on the Secure Shell session, CLI. So for me to be able to see the camera or the footage of the camera, I will have to connect a monitor, a keyboard, and a mouse to be able to see the footage. And since I don't have a spare monitor, mouse, or keyboard, what I'm going to do is I'm going to remote into the Raspberry Pi using VNC. So whenever I run the command lines to see the footage, I can actually see it without having to go through the whole installing hardware to the Raspberry Pi. And what VNC is going to do is it's going to give me the graphical user interface that I need. So whenever I pull terminal in VNC, inside VNC, I run the command line. And instead of just giving me all this text information, I am actually going to be able to see actual footage from the camera. So let me pull VNC up and log into the Raspberry Pi. All right, so VNC. And as you can see, the only session I have recorded is the Raspberry Pi. So I'm going to double click on it and this will come up. I'm going to open terminal. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the same command line I ran before with an addition of the -t and 0. What these extra two switches do is it will start taking footage and it will continue to take footage until I stop it manually. So I'm going to hit enter and there we go. Now I can see the camera footage on the Raspberry Pi. You can see my hand and I'm good. So now if I want to move the Raspberry Pi or anything, it will continue to record everything. So good. So now I know the Raspberry Pi hardware is being properly installed. The Raspberry Pi is recognizing the camera and I am actually able to see footage through the Raspberry Pi VNC. So the VNC again is the equivalent of me plugging in a monitor, a keyboard, and a mouse. If I do that, if I install physical hardware to the Raspberry Pi, I'm going to be able to do this exactly, be able to see the footage of the Raspberry Pi camera on the monitor. So that's what VNC is helping me to do this time, just to be able to confirm that the Raspberry Pi and the camera are working together. All right, so I'm good with that. I'm going to close this window and I'm going to stop the footage by hitting Control C and I'm good. Okay, now let's say I only have a laptop and I don't have a spare monitor, mouse, and keyboard. And I can only SSH into the Raspberry Pi and I can interact with it via command line. And I can run the command line that I run before and you can see where, things are happening. It's recording, but you still cannot see the footage. So how to go about that? Well, there's a way we can set up your Windows laptop or computer in a way where the Raspberry Pi can record footage and save as an MP4 file on your Windows machine, and then you can use Windows Media Player and see the footage. The only thing is it will not be live feed. It will be a recording of a specific period of time. So we can do that and I'll show you how here in a minute. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to minimize the PowerShell. I'm going to close the VNC session since I am no longer going to be doing anything with it. And now I'm going to open a smaller session to show only the PowerShell terminal. Okay, and I'm going to bring the Raspberry Pi terminal back into focus. As you can see, I am logged in, and I am going to run these two command lines. And what these two command lines do is the first one creates a 5-second video called Pi video. The second command line converts this Pi video from a .h.264 format into an MP4 format. And the video is going to be saved in the Raspberry Pi's memory. Then after this is done, I'm going to open PowerShell on my Windows system, and I'm going to extract this MP4 file from the Raspberry Pi's memory, and I'm going to save the file into a Windows folder. So let's go ahead and run these command lines. It's going to be running for 5 seconds, and it's going to save the file in the Raspberry Pi memory. Okay, now this is done. I'm going to go ahead and open PowerShell as an administrator, and I'm going to bring it into focus. Since I'm not going to be running any more command lines in the Raspberry Pi right now, I'm going to minimize the terminal, and I am going to bring the Windows folder into focus also. Okay, and now that I have PowerShell pulled up and the folder where the file is going to be saved, I'm going to go ahead and run the following command line on my Windows PowerShell terminal. SCP, the username at the IP address of the Raspberry, the location where the file was saved in the Raspberry Pi, and the location where the file is going to be saved in the Windows computer. So I'm going to hit enter, and it's going to ask for the Raspberry Pi's password. Enter the password, and that will allow PowerShell to log into the Raspberry Pi, find the folder, find the file, and pull it and save it into this file in File Explorer in my Windows system. Okay, and now that it's here, I'm going to go ahead and run it, and as you can see, it ran. So what this is telling me is that if we start from the beginning, the fact that I can see footage right here, it tells me that the hardware, the camera hardware, is properly installed in the Raspberry Pi, and I am able to pull footage from the Raspberry Pi into the Windows system. It is the process on how you can create a video with the Raspberry Pi, save it, and import it into your Windows machine to review the footage at a later time. A couple of scenarios where this setup will be beneficial. The first, like we said before, if you don't have a spare monitor, mouse, and keyboard to connect the Raspberry Pi to, you can easily set it where you can see the footage the camera took without extra hardware or having to install any other tool or software like VNC in your system if you don't want to. The second scenario is if you don't want the camera to stay recording all the time, but instead you want the camera to record only when motion is detected. For example, if an animal walks in front of the camera, a car parks in your driveway, or if a person is at your front door delivering a package or something. You can set the camera to trigger an event and start recording however and whenever you decide. You can also set times between image captures, the length of the video, etc. That is the cool thing about making your own tools. You have control on what these do and how they behave. In the next video, I'm going to show you how you can expand from this configuration and set up your Raspberry Pi where you can see the video footage from a computer or from your phone through a web browser. And that is it. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.